Paranormies, it's Jen and you're on the light side of the paranormal. Have you ever heard of the case of the toxic woman? This is a bizarre case of a woman who went to a hospital to get emergency care and ended up getting several hospital staff members very ill. What was the infection that she was passing on? It's still a bit of a mystery to this day, and some think that they have it all figured out, while others aren't so sure. Before we get started, if you are new here, please click that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any of the paranormal content we put out twice a week, all year round. On February 19th in 1994, a 31-year-old woman named Gloria Ramirez, seen here, was rushed to General Hospital in Riverside in South California. She was only briefly and incoherently answering questions as she was rushed into a trauma room. She was taking rapid, shallow breaths, and her blood pressure was plummeting. This stood out as unusual to the staff, as it's normally seen in elderly patients, not a woman in her 30s. It's important to note that Gloria also suffered from cervical cancer. The staff dosed Gloria with Valium, Versed, I hope I'm saying that right, Ativan, lidocaine, and Bretulum. If I'm not pronouncing these right, my apologies, I am not a healthcare worker. Anyway, what she was dosed with was standard protocol in this situation. Maureen Welch, a respiratory therapist treating Gloria, used an ambu bag as an alternative to mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Gloria was responding poorly to treatment, so the staff decided to defibrillate her heart with electricity. Sorry if I'm glancing down, I have a lot of notes. When they stripped her shirt off to place the paddles on her chest, they noticed that she had a slick, oily substance all over her body. They also noted a strange fruity or garlicky smell, which they thought might be coming from her mouth. At this time, Susan Kane, a registered nurse, came to take blood from Gloria for analysis. And as the blood was drawn, a chemical smell accompanied the blood. Susan Kane handed the syringe over to Maureen Welch to get her opinion on the odor, and Maureen could smell it too. Maureen said she expected it to smell somewhat of chemotherapy, which is common in cancer patients, but it actually smelled more like ammonia. The two women passed the syringe to the doctor who was treating Gloria, Humberto Ochoa, and Julie Gorczynski, a medical resident, who also noticed strange particles floating in the blood. Susan Kane started to head for the door but began to pass out as the doctor guided her to the floor. Her face was burning, and she was removed from the room on a gurney. Julie, the resident, also began to feel ill. She was starting to feel lightheaded and unwell. She left the trauma room to go sit at a nurse's station. Someone came up to her to ask if she was okay, and before she could answer, she fainted as well. She was the second staff member to be removed by gurney. Julie would shake intermittently and stop breathing for a few seconds, a condition known as apnea. Now, Maureen Welch began to feel ill. She said she heard somebody scream, and then suddenly she was waking up. And after she awoke, she could not control her limbs. She was paralyzed. At this point, several other staff members also began to fall ill, and the hospital declared an internal emergency. Humberto Ochoa, the doctor who was helping Gloria Ramirez, ordered for all emergency patients to be evacuated to the hospital parking lot. A few staff members stayed behind with the doctor to help him try and save Gloria's life. They continued to administer electrical shock and medication, but at 8:50 p.m., Gloria Ramirez was pronounced dead. Her body then was moved to an isolation room. At this time, patients were being treated in the parking lot, and staff members who had been in contact with Gloria began to strip and remove their clothing and bag them as they didn't know what toxins they had been exposed to. Julie and Susan continued to experience the apnea and tremors, as well as Susan's face burning. A woman named Sally Balderas, who helped move Gloria's body to the isolation room, began retching and felt her skin burning. This escalated quickly, and she was removed on a gurney as well. 23 out of the 37 staff members there that night experienced at least one symptom. 5 were hospitalized for the rest of the night, and Sally Balderas experienced bouts of apnea during her 10-day stay in the hospital. Julie Gorczynski was the most ill and spent 2 weeks in intensive care. In addition to the apnea, she also experienced hepatitis, pancreatitis, and avascular necrosis, which is a condition where bone tissue is starved of blood and starts to die. In her case, this attacked her knees and left her using crutches for months. At 11 p.m., a hazmat team arrived and searched for volatile toxins that may be in the air of the emergency ward at the hospital, but they didn't find a trace of the chemicals they were looking for. With still no answer, the Riverside Coroner's Office was now left with performing the autopsy of Gloria Ramirez without any knowledge of what her body may be harboring. The coroners sealed the room and wore hazmat suits, and after 90 minutes, they arrived with blood samples, tissue samples, as well as air samples from the air in the body bag, and her body was placed in an aluminum casket. The coroner's office still hasn't said much about what went on in the days that followed, but after several days of not finding anything remarkable, they began to solicit help. The coroner's office sent samples to the Forensic Science Center at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory on March 25th in 1994. After over a month of investigating, they found basically nothing. It was found that Gloria had been taking high amounts of codeine and Tylenol, as well as lidocaine and Tigan. I'm not sure how that is pronounced, but it is an anti-nausea medication that can contribute to the ammonia smell. Gloria also had large enough amounts of dimethylsulfone in her blood and tissues. Dimethylsulfone does occur naturally in the human body as it breaks down certain substances. However, there was much more in Gloria's system than technically normal, but that still didn't seem to be something that could have contributed to what happened in the emergency room that night. They were discouraged at this point. After all of the efforts put in and time spent on these tests, they essentially found nothing. A press conference was held on April 29th in 1994, where Scotty Hill, the coroner, announced that Gloria Ramirez died of cardiac dysrhythmia triggered by kidney failure stemming from her cervical cancer. As for what happened that night in the emergency room and how it may be linked to Gloria, Hill concluded that exhaustive toxicological studies had not identified any external toxic substances that would have contributed to her death. Now, because of this, the county health department called in California's Department of Health and Human Services, and they put their two top scientists on the case, Doctors Ana Maria Osorio and Kirsten Waller. They interviewed 34 staff members that were working in the emergency ward that night. There was a lot in common with those who had experienced the fainting, the shortness of breath, and the muscle spasms. The survey found that the people who fell ill were mostly women rather than men, and of those people, they had not eaten dinner that night, and they fell ill on an empty stomach. On September 2nd, they released an official report saying that the staff most likely experienced an outbreak of mass sociogenic illness, perhaps triggered by an odor. So basically mass hysteria that triggered panic attacks after smelling what they smelled on Gloria in the trauma room. Women being more susceptible, and the fact that no toxins in the air were found, are hallmark signs of mass hysteria. As a woman, offense taken. It's also important to note that the paramedics that delivered Gloria to the hospital via ambulance were unaffected, and they were in an even more closed-in area with her body than those of the medical staff in the trauma room. They, however, did not rule out the possibility that some substance poisoned the emergency room staff who were working directly on Gloria. Julie Gorginski filed a lawsuit against the hospital and others, seeking $6 million in damages. Mass hysteria. They were medical professionals. They don't become hysterical and have panic attacks when somebody is having a heart attack. Other staff members were also angry with this conclusion and wanted the case to be re-examined. So after one of these re-examinations, it was found that Gloria had covered her body from head to toe in DMSO, dimethyl sulfone. DMSO can come in a cream, which they believe she may have covered her body from head to toe in to relieve the pain or cure her cancer. DMSO was once thought to be a cure-all and a pain reliever. Athletes also used to use it on their muscles and joints. Then a study was done, and it was showed that this substance could literally ruin your eyesight, and it was declared a toxic substance in 1965. When this substance is exposed to oxygen, it converts to dimethyl sulfate, not sulfone. and it acts much differently. As a gas vapor, it can destroy cells in someone's eyes, lungs, and mouth. And it can also cause convulsions, delirium, and paralysis. The DMSO cream would also explain that fruity, garlicky smell as well, and the oily sheen seen on Gloria's body. And that was the end of that. Now, there's a problem with this because Gloria Ramirez's family was adamant on the fact that she did not use this cream on her body. And there were a lot of people, toxicologists included, that said that this substance interacting with the oxygen, it's very slim that this would cause what it caused. But it is an explanation. But there was another theory given by the New Times LA, and it was that Gloria was given methylamine. This is from dyingwords.net. Riverside County was one of the largest methylamine manufacturing and distributing points in America, and Riverside hospital workers had been smuggling out methylamine to sell to meth cookers. Hospitals routinely use methylamine as a disinfectant and cleaning agents, including sterilizing surgical instruments. The Times reported that Riverside hospital workers used IV bags to capture and store methylamine, as the IV bags were sealed, safe to handle, and entirely inconspicuous. The story theorized that an IV bag loaded with about-to-be smuggled methylamine accidentally found its way into the ER and got plugged into Gloria Ramirez's arm. Because methylamine turns to gas so quickly when exposed to oxygen, this would explain why no traces were found in the toxicology testing. It all went into the air and into the lungs of 23 people. People still wonder to this day what happened, and I don't think we're going to get a satisfying answer. But there have been a few people that have said, which conclusion do you think they would have released? The DMSO conclusion that toxicologists said was very rare, or some crooked hospital worker letting an IV bag full of methylamine slip away from them and into an emergency room. Which way do you think they're going to lean? Towards the hospital's fault or the patient's fault for using DMSO cream? You can make your own conclusion on that one. I think you know where I stand. But there you guys have it. That is the mysterious case of the toxic woman, Gloria Ramirez. No matter what happened here, this is a truly sad story of a 31-year-old woman who lost her life way too early, and several people who suffered greatly trying to save her life. If you liked this video, please make sure to give that like button a boop. It helps us out so much, and we really do appreciate it. If there's anything I missed in this case, please make sure to leave it down below. There was a lot of information about all of the toxicology reports and different testing that was done that I went through, and I had to leave out a lot of it because it would have been a crazy long video. So this definitely was a summary of the events that happened that night and what was found afterwards. Please don't forget to follow us on Instagram at TLS_paranormal, and you can follow Alice and myself on our personal pages as well, and everything is linked in the description below. And until next time, keep on creeping on.